I took a step about 40 years ago, and that step was looking at my mother. I remember when we were young, when my mother, they would just come and say, Mama had a baby. And we say, when did she get pregnant? My mom is so slim and all the rest of it. But one thing I have noticed about my mom, from the time we were young, our own food is always separate. My mom has been a vegetarian. She doesn't eat meat, you know. So, and I said to myself, maybe there must be something in this meat. And I started asking questions because she was looking a lot. My mom is going to be 102 this December.
She won't.
That's the one. And she still climbs steps. She still goes to the market. She still cook her food. She hasn't lost a single tooth in her mouth. So if you see her walk, and one thing that I do, she lives like the Chinese people. If you go to my mom's house and you see a big flask, she's always drinking tea. Lemongrass tea. And lemongrass tea, I learned from very early, she makes it with umido, not with water. And then that is what she will be taking. She can take like 20, 30 cups a day. So when you look at the Chinese people have tiny figure, it's because they take a lot of hot things. So that's why they tell people don't take cold water, don't take this, all those things, they don't help your digestive system. So I took that call from my mom and I stopped drinking alcohol 40 years ago. I stopped eating meat 40 years ago. And the rest I just exercise.
Now, so what's your plan? What are you going to be doing and what are you going to be doing?
All I want to do is to continue to add value to people. I had a lot of endowment fund where I pay for indigenous students who couldn't afford education to send them through universities. I want to continue to do that. But one of the most prominent thing that is agitating my mind is a vocational center. When I was Pro-Chancellor of the university, all Pro-Chancellors of all Nigerian universities, we had a conference in Kaduna, and we decided that we should advise government that enough of universities. Rather, government should spend money to equip all our universities and begin to build vocational centers. Why? We noticed that only 10% of those who are graduating from Nigerian university were able to gain employment. But you go to Ghana, go to Togo, and some of you will have the experience. There is no local government that you will not find a vocational center where they are teaching people how to lay tiles, how to do bricklaying, how to repair air conditioner, how to do electrical work and all that. And when you hire these people, you will find out that they are better than our own artisans. It is because they are well trained from the vocational center that they are coming from, where they put experts there and they were taught how to do this thing properly. If a graduate decide to go and learn air conditioner repair, you will be a better person than a quack who has not seen the inside of his school, who does not even understand how a compressor works, what is an expansion valve, how does this gas flow, why do I plug, what is neutral, what is positive, what is negative on the electrical point. You know, he will be a better person. And look at any street. Take one street. There is no street in this Nigeria or in this Lagos that does not have air conditioner. So even if he starts from his own street and he services one man's house, and the man can tell the neighbor that this guy is good in servicing my air conditioner, that one will tell the other person. He will be able to feed himself. You know, if you take a young people, most of our people have become Yahoo and all the rest of it because they have nothing to do. There are no vocational centers. It's scary. And we are building, you know, a very big time bomb that is going to explode in our face. All over the world, you know, rather than people looking at Nigeria with all the intellectual capability, they now see us as, you know, nation that produce 419 people. That's not who we are. We have lots of people. It is the government that have created that. Nobody is paying attention to our youth. And devil finds work for our idle hands. So it is for that I am craving to start now establishing vocational institution. I will start from my hometown and I will take it to other level. I'm trying, if not because of this COVID that I have reached advanced level talking to Texas Institute of Technology, which is the biggest vocational institution in the world, to see how they can partner with us in establishing some highly technical vocational center where people can even come and learn mechanic workshop that it can be useful. You understand? When you have a graduate, coming out to say, okay, I want to learn mechanic work, he will be a better mechanic than a person who have not seen the inside of a school, who have just gone to the roadside to learn mechanic workshop. If he says he wants to be, say, generator repairer, he will be a better person than anybody who have not seen the inside of it, because he will be able to understand basic things that will make that business to rise. He will also be able to understand ethics of doing business. So those are the things. We need to create a lot of vocational center for teeming youths that are roaming the streets out there. I feel so sad, and I don't know what our governments are doing. Some say, yes, some of them will say they have schools, that they teach people this. I don't know how many schools, I don't know how many they employ there. It is possible, but we need to build more. We need to build more schools, to take in our youth. Even if you take in a local government and you say, okay, come and learn how to barbia. It doesn't need much to empower a person to do a barber. Just buy him a clipper. We have clipper that does not use electricity, and buy him a mirror and one plastic chair. In his neighborhood, he will get money to be able to eat in his neighborhood. As little as that. Rather than for that person to go out and begin to do 419 and begin to do all kinds of things. Devil will always find us for an idle hands.
You're very passionate about your hometown. Can you tell us a bit about how that influenced you growing up here?
Well, you see, when I was growing up, I grew up with my grandparents. Well, not that I went to live with them, I was living with my parents, but once I'm on vacation, I will be crying like a baby that I want to go to my grandparents. My mom's dad happens to be a very wealthy man, Utudeko, and I'm sure you know about Utudeko. About Utudeko is number 11 to my mom. My mom is the first child of Utudeko. Utudeko happens to be an Ijebu man who relocated to Ibadan. If you go to Ibadan today, Leventis Motor, SUE Motors, they all belong to Baba Utudeko, my mom, and his sibling as he collecting rents. If you go to what you call Lebanon Road in Ibadan, majority of the houses there belong to my grandfather. Ogunpa, all the houses my grandfather. Kibola, I cannot count how many houses, even to this Lagos and all the rest of it. So my grandfather was the first man to have a zoo, in the whole of Western region. And it was when his hyena broke and killed somebody on Ogunpa Hilltop that is now the Western region government now said individual cannot have a zoo. And they took all his animals and started the University of Ibadan Zoo. So as a young boy, I used to see lion, elephant, all those at the backyard of my own grandfather. And he was also the first man to make soft drink in Nigeria, lemonade, L&K. Those who are old will remember that. He was a very wealthy man. And, and everybody is from Udogbolu. Everybody from Udogbolu will come to him. He's always educating, helping people, establishing them in business. So I saw that as a young boy, that I have grandparents who are relating to their background. On my own father's side, he happened to be a ruler. My grandfather was the last Bale in Agowe, and he was fighting to be crowned a king, and he died a week. The approval came, they were to crown him, and then he died. So I am from that, and I'm used to going home, sitting down, because he was controlling the entire town at the time. and people will always bring cases and things like that to him, and he will sit down to look into it. So I am a stakeholder, both from mother and father side. I'm fortunate to have come from very wealthy and highly responsible. My mother too, the father also came from Moloda, ruling house in Igbebolu. So both father and mother are from royalty, and I am lucky, and I embrace all of them. They imparted a lot of knowledge into me as a young boy, and because of that, I decided that, you know, a good foundation has been laid. I must go back and contribute my own quota.
Let's talk about style, sir. You've always been a very stylish man. How did that develop?
Well, let me say, I have a grandmother in Ijebu who was the first woman to wear corset that was made out of gold. She was a trader from Saudi Arabia, and one woman, Birikisu Oshubo, that's in Ijebu, which is not too far from Magowe. They were both traders together going to Mecca. She was a very wealthy person. My grandparents, you know, were very good traders. They had money, and they were leading the trade in terms of fashion. Growing up, I would look at my grandmother with all jewelry and very latest fanciful clothes and all that. So I have had eye to dress neatly. And as a young boy, my friend used to call me Black Italian, because when I used to wear suit, wow, I used to dress to kill, you know. Then, and after some time, after my chieftaincy title, I have to share the suit and all that. Although I still wear suit once in a while when I'm, you know, in the oil industry, when I'm going for presentation and all that, but that is not as common as it used to be.
Anyway.